Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us. This week we have a little bit of a different episode. So last week you heard from Elizabeth Jeffett about grit, about being an author, an entrepreneur, as well as a woman in the workplace. Well, after that conversation wrapped up, we just got to talking about the Me Too movement and whether it's been more beneficial or more detrimental to women here in the workplace. So she said it was okay to record and roll on that footage. And here's that real conversation. We'd love to know your thoughts and let us know what you think, and we hope you enjoy. Every woman has a unique story, and as a journalist, I want to share with you some of the most inspiring ones. I'm Sarah Strackhouse, and this is the Strackhouse. You're talking about women in business. I feel like the dynamic has changed since, since the 80s, and now with a lot of the Me Too stuff coming up and everything like that, I feel like the dynamic is changing in the business world. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a really tricky time right now. Women have worked very hard to, in effect, be an equal to men within the workplace, or to be taken seriously, maybe not thought of as sort of a cute trinket. One of the areas women I think have done very, very well in is, in the legal field. There are a lot of women lawyers. They've done very well, and so certain industries are women have done very well and they're equal. Others, I think they're still struggling for, the oil and gas business, male dominated.
Yeah.
But I think the Me Too movement has had a negative effect on women. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying it hasn't opened up a dialogue. It has certainly opened up a dialogue. But between the Me Too and social media, what we've done is we've accused a lot of people of doing things in social media where their reputations have been really hurt, and it may not be true. And so I think in general, I would, and I don't have any scientific fact to back this up, but my gut is very strong. I think men have pulled in their horns a little bit. I think they're a little nervous about being accused of something, being in a situation where somebody could say he said, she said. So I think they're walking like on broken glass, and I think it's going to take a while before there's some trust again.
It's an interesting dynamic.
It's scary, and it's really exacerbated by events that have been big public events. I think the one during the Supreme Court nominations and the testimony, particularly by Christian Blasey Ford, you could certainly see pain on her face, but accusing somebody and saying, I don't know if I was there, or I'm not sure what happened, or I don't even know if something happened, you can't undo these things. And so do men have cause to be concerned that they could be accused of something they didn't do, even if it's by mistake?
Well, like we were talking about earlier, Duke Lacrosse.
Exactly. And that's going back to, I can't even remember what year that was, but I mentioned to you, I have a son, and I caution him about being in any environment where he could be, sort of painted with the same broad brush, like those boys where they were at a party, they were in a situation that something happened, they're accused of something, and very hard to undo the damage. So I think women, while wanting to, and rightfully so, expect to be treated equally in the workforce and, and with the same respect and the same courtesies and same considerations, I also think that women are going to have a lot of work to do because of the media outcry from Me Too. So on a day-to-day basis, women that are working with men that come into an office, they want to be in a meeting, they want to be included, and they may not get included in a one-on-one going for a drink with a colleague because they might feel awkward. The men might feel awkward. They don't want to get accused of something, whereas the man might take a different male colleague, and it's not because they don't like the women. It's because they're now concerned.
Right.
So I think we're going to have some headwinds. That's all I can say. I think there are going to be some headwinds. And, you know, I don't know how long it's going to take for that pendulum to move back. And there's certainly unbelievable situations where we've heard of, you know, where women have been raped in offices, or, you know, and
truly
the
victimized.
Weinstein, maybe the Weinstein case. I don't think he's actually been found guilty of anything yet. And I would just, as maybe as the circumstantial evidence looks really, really bad, for him, I still think we all need to be really careful about throwing around accusations like they're fact, like, you know, until we know, because I mean,
and prosecuting people before they actually get into a court of law.
Absolutely. It's happened over and over again now. And you know, we don't want to become the women. It doesn't help women to be the ones that would throw out something like, well, you know, I just didn't like the way the person looked at me. You know, there are some real unpleasant women, and they can give you a look too.
Right.
Okay. I mean, you know,
all the way around.
I don't know about, you know, women working with other women needs to be part of the discussion as well. I think there are a lot of women who don't want to help bring women forward. They're very competitive. So, you know, it's not just a sexual issue. It's not a gender issue.
It's not men versus women.
No, it I don't think it is. I think in some cases, women are harder on other women. So the question is, you know, how do we all succeed? And as I said to you, you know, with the probably the new blog that I'm going to be doing, it's going to be, how do we play in the sandbox together? You know, how are we going to interact? Because there is amazing energy between people. And you and I talked about the fact that, you know, if I walk up to someone and that the man says, gosh, that's a beautiful outfit, you look terrific, and I welcome that compliment,
and you found them attractive,
and I thought, and I like them, and I think they're nice, but if some other man says that to me and I think that they're creepy, well, I'm like going, is that sexual harassment? You know, I think we just need to be real careful about that.
Yep.
And, you know, I don't think there's anything wrong with a woman being very clear with her boundaries and saying, you know, I don't like it when you make comments about my personal appearance. I appreciate the thought, but maybe let's just keep it on.
You might think you're being kind, but I don't want it.
Yeah, let's just keep it to the subject of our business, if you don't mind. And, you know, I think women can be that way. I think they can be direct and kind and blunt and set boundaries. Again, this is very different than somebody being sexually assaulted is a crime. It's violent. It's hard. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about how do men and women interact in the workplace.
And coexist.
Yes. Well, and I mean, the same issues could come up whether it's people of the same gender. I mean, maybe somebody doesn't welcome someone's approach. You know, it's a energy between people. And maybe there's a sexual energy involved, or there's, you know, a social boundary that's crossed, and it really doesn't have to do with gender. It has to do with whether I welcome the comments that are made, or if I find them offensive, and how do I deal with that?
Kind of along those lines, you know, a lot of times working in news, you're told to wear certain things, not wear certain things, look a certain way, and it's definitely changed a lot. Like before, women had to wear jackets because it gave you a more masculine and an intense look. Now they want you to be more feminine, this and that. And I got very lucky that I've worked at pretty good stations that a lot of times allowed you to be you, and I, you know, never had to deal with any pressures from uncomfortable advances. But I'm very fortunate that I had that, but I know that a lot of people didn't. And so the news world is an interesting one that I think probably follows along those lines. So it's interesting that you kind of bring up just the dynamic there.
Yeah, you know, the news anchor world is one worth studying, because I think it
a lot of layers.
Yes, and in particular, it's hard not to notice that, at least on the national news, you know, the cable news stations, and I can think of Fox News and many others, but their anchors are really, really beautiful.
Right.
I mean, so there seems to be an appearance standard as well as a journalistic standard.
Yep.
Okay. And
obviously the journalism world is a little bit of an extreme case. You know, you and I are kind of talking just normal day-to-day business, but it's I don't know, it's a different conversation that I didn't see happening before the whole Me Too movement.
Yeah. So would you say that there is an expectation of women's appearances that is radically different than from the appearance men might have, as far as what within the workplace, whether it's just in journalism or other areas?
For appearance-wise, in general,
how they present themselves, what they wear, because I have a follow-up on that related to women's sports.
In the news world, yes.
Yeah.
But I think in the normal business place, as long as you kind of look professional, whatever your version of professional is, like if you work somewhere where it's super casual, that's one thing. But if you work somewhere where, you know, you're expected to be in a nice dress, a blazer, or a nice business suit, a blazer, this and that, then I think, to me, I've seen it pretty equal in my business workplaces. But I can only speak from personal experience. Yeah.
Well, and circling back to the television, people on the internet. It to me just, it's pretty obvious that women who are supposed to look as beautiful as they possibly can, almost as if they're in the film business.
Yep.
I mean, so that's one thing. And when I flip to my background in professional women's tennis and in sports, one of the things that comes up all the time will be, you know, watching matches, you know, Grand Slams one of the things that'll come up is the spectators, and many times men, they'll say, oh my God, like that's the greatest outfit, you know, or women will say, how could that person come out wearing, you know, that outfit? And so, but it's 99% of the time, it's related to the women tennis players. They don't ever say, well, I wonder why Roger Federer wore that pair of shorts. I mean, it's rare. I mean, there were comments when he played at night at the U.S. Open and at the O2 Arena in London where he wore black with a tuxedo stripe down his shorts. So it was evening gear. It was fabulous, and people love that. But in general, the comments are about what the women look like. Not just their athleticism.
Yep.
So there is this interest, concern, and it's not just with men; it's men and women about what the women look like.
Yeah.
Right. So, you know, we're the fairer sex that people are interested in what we look like.
Right.
And you know, so how do we factor that into the reality of life instead of
reality of a workplace?
Instead of pretending that these differences don't exist, it's almost like, how do we embrace some of the differences and say, you know, I think, you know, people care about their appearance, and so how do we acknowledge that without it being a burden? Like, it's like women have to work twice as hard about what they look like to be able to interact in the man's world. They can't come in just looking like one of the men.
Right.
And so I think those are questions that we haven't answered yet.
Yep. But we're still trying to.
Yeah, we're working. We're working at
working on it.
You know.
Well, and I want to hear more about this conversation. We've probably run out of time here, but where can people find out more information about your upcoming show?
Oh, well, it's coming out in 2020, and with Real News PR. So that'll be forthcoming. Stay tuned. Stay tuned for In the Sandbox with Elizabeth Jeffett.
If you'd like to nominate an inspiring woman, email me at sarahstrackhouse@gmail.com. Thanks for joining. We'll see you next time.